On August 23rd, 1853, transcendentalist writer Henry David Thoreau, likely sweaty and exhausted from a long hot summer at his forest cabin by Walden Pond, wrote in his diary, "Live each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influences of each. Each season has its own divine beauty and harmony that Thoreau recommends each of us enjoy fully."
Some men have interpreted their own lives, allowing us to share their feelings and innermost thoughts. Henry David Thoreau did this in Walden, a collection of autobiographical notes between man and nature.
There is a power for good in the universe, and you can use it.
Welcome to the Science of Spiritual Reality with me, Mitchell K. Jones.
Sure. Well, it starts with the fact that he dedicated himself to keeping a journal. This was around the time that he was swinging over to finishing Walden. His first book had not done well on the marketplace, which meant that he had to take up a job as a surveyor, which put him outdoors as his workday. And he started around that time to take daily walks, not tied to any job with his surveying, but simply to engage more deeply with the outside world. And the point about the walks was that he would walk with a notebook in hand and then write up the notes afterwards as a kind of, now we would call it nature journaling. So he's noting what he sees and what he responds to, and trying to do it in the moment. That's the notebook in the field. But then when he writes it up, it becomes a kind of record of seeing and the kind of time and dedication it took. Well, of course, it opened his mind to everything that was happening around him in a very intentional way. And the writing of it turned it into kind of a proto-poetry. So imagine him doing this, and he's following the cycling of the year, and he moves into the second year and the third year and the fourth year of this very intentional. He kept it up for the rest of his life. He starts to notice patterns, and the seasonal patterns intrigue him more and more the more deeply he engages in this project. And of course, this is where much of Walden's greatness comes from. He starts to work a lot of this sensitivity, this observation, this acuteness of being into this developing manuscript of Walden. But he keeps it going after Walden is published, so it infuses everything that he does. And that seasonal awareness, it's interesting because if you try practicing this, at a certain point, I thought he'd run out of something to see. It would all be repetition. And he doesn't. Everything is always new, and there's always more. Year after year, he just turns over a new leaf, and then there's a whole new set of phenomena that he's never noticed before, and suddenly, how could I not have seen this? And he's all excited about something new. And so it becomes a way of asking questions. When does spring really start? What's the moment when spring tips into summer? And is there a point when summer is at its absolute maximum and then tips into fall? Or is it a slow process? And he's always looking to see what is the thing that tells me that time is passing, that today is shifting in a way that was different yesterday, that's moving forward in time, not just a difference. So that acuteness of awareness tunes him bodily and into the seasons. And it's not just natural phenomena. He notices himself in his reactions. He records things like, when do I need to put on gloves? When can I take off my jacket? Do I need to put on boots or not? He notices his neighbors. When do women start hanging laundry out to dry in the sun? How do people, talk and behave? He notices how excited people get during storms and, like the great snowstorm. Suddenly everybody's very sociable. So he records the reactions of the people around him as part of the phenomena of the seasons. Things in shop windows, the behavior of people on the sidewalks. So it's a holistic kind of, we're part of the seasonal changes too. And so he's aware of what weather and climate and seasons do to us, how we're always attuned even if we're not aware. But he thinks that from his acute awareness, the way it's developing, that we shield ourselves. There's a kind of, he speaks of it as health, that to be attuned like this, instead of saying, oh, I hate winter, right? Or, oh, it's so hot in the summer, and I dread summer, saying, try to open yourself to those influences. They're all good in their own way. And that's the kind of advice that when he moves into the teacherly mode, not just the person recording his thinking, but the person who's writing the essays, then that mode becomes a way of talking about how our alienation from nature can be healed if we open ourselves to seasonal change and accepting it, and again, living in season, which I think is a really powerful concept.
The ancient author of Genesis also expressed this same pattern in Genesis 8:22. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So the seasons show us that there's a deeper rhythm to life. Growth and rest, expansion, contraction. These return in cycles, sacred cycles. Each season passes, but each returns in time. Henry David Thoreau captured this same rhythm. He wrote, "It was summer, and now again it is winter. Nature loves this rhyme so well that she never tires of repeating it." Nature speaks in repetition, but not in sameness. Each season carries a new reiteration, a new renewal. Thoreau also wrote that nature is but another name for health, and the seasons are but different states of health. So what this correspondence between nature and health means is that God is present throughout creation. The same divine life that moves through nature moves through us. Spiritual growth comes through alignment with that presence. So summer then for our souls represents our vitality, our openness, our creativity, and our inherent abundance. So today, as we enter the summer season, we'll explore what it means to live in season this summer, not only in time, but in consciousness as well.
Emerson and Olcott. The way to compare men is to compare their respective ideals. The actual man is too complex to deal with. Emerson is a critic, poet, philosopher with talent not so conspicuous, not so adequate to his task, but his field is still higher, his task more arduous. Lives a far more intense life, seeks to realize a divine life, his affections and intellect equally developed. Has advanced farther, and a new heaven opens to him. Love and friendship, religion, poetry, the holy are familiar to him. The life of an artist, more variegated, more observing, fine perception, not so robust, elastic, practical enough in his own field, faithful, a judge of men. There is no such general critic of men and things, no such trustworthy and faithful man, more of the divine realized in him than in any, a poetic critic reserving the unqualified nouns for the gods.
You may rely on it that you have the best of me in my books, that I am not worth seeing personally. What am I to the truth I feebly utter? The great rule of composition, and if I were a professor of rhetoric, I should insist on this, is to speak the truth.
I'm very happy to be able to drop in and see you like this. I'm B.F. Skinner, Harvard University. I think you were there briefly. I want to explain to you why I took the liberty of calling a book Walden 2 after your Walden 1. I did it because I not only very much admire your book, but I think the two books are really on the same theme. I really believe that we are both interested in the possibility of redesigning a way of life. If you don't like the life that society hands you, go off and try something of your own. Today, things are much more complicated. Young people get together in groups now and go off and build their huts. The design of a community seems to me to be exactly comparable with your design of what we might call a community for one, except that would be meaningless since a commune implies more than one with something in common.
The tomb is the only boarding house I know where 100 may be served at once. In the catacomb we may dwell together and prop each other up without loss.
Well, if we don't watch out, the world will be nothing but a living catacomb. That's the difficulty, you see.
Professor Skinner, I find that in my time men suffer from a curious desperation, inner desperation. As a scientist dealing with the human mind, can you tell me, do men in your time still suffer from this ailment?
Well, yes, I don't think very many people are happy these days, and that's a problem, certainly. Yourself, you build the conditions which make you desperate. I had to wait the other day in a doctor's office, and there was a loud music thing going on. We tried to turn it down, couldn't find out where to turn it off, and it was perfectly awful, and I had to wait about an hour. And someone had already told me that I should leave my overshoes outside because the rugs were very precious. And I felt like telling this nurse that my brain is precious too. Well, you finally turn off that music, because that is doing more damage to my brain than my wet overshoes are going to do to your rug. But they don't think that way. Well, now, you got away from that. You could. But today, with a large number of people in the world, it's very hard to have solitude and silence. So you're not going to change people. You're not going to get rid of desperation. If you believe that you can change a person inside somehow or other, then go ahead and try it. I don't think people are born bad or good or with or without consciences. They are born people and learn to behave in various ways. And you learned one set of behaviors which stood you in very good stead. It gave you a life which is remembered by enormous numbers of people, a life which has influenced enormous numbers of people. Someone else who didn't have your luck developed in a different way, and he's forgotten.
I think that what you do, Professor Skinner, is that somehow you have replaced, the individual has been replaced by your sense of what the community is. Instead of the individual having within him a sense of his own destiny, the community now gives him a sense of his destiny. Man doesn't function on communal decisions. He functions through conscience, if you will.
You didn't grow up with a little conscience growing in you as part of the germplasm from which you were born. This was something you developed in a particular culture, and Concord in your day was an ideal place to develop a conscience. And once you had a good, thoroughgoing conscience, you could go off by yourself and live according to it. I don't think it ever came from inside you.
Well, to me, conscience is a natural thing. Conscience comes from consciousness.
That's just a question then of how you're going to define terms.
Professor Skinner, you alluded to me in one of your books. It was called Beyond Freedom and Dignity. You cite me, I believe, as an outrageous romantic, a pernicious character in which society should be wary of, and which society cannot tolerate.
Well, I didn't know I was going to meet you when I wrote that, or I should have softened it up a bit, I think. But that is the interpretation that people place on you, and I was using that as an example of a thoroughgoing individualism, which I do believe, not in you, but in those who, let us say, turn to a drug culture to maximize their own enjoyment, or turn to Eastern mystical practices of meditation, which are designed explicitly to free the individual from his past and from his future. That is what I think people take you to stand for, and I don't think you do stand for it. If I've used you as a prototype there, I apologize now, because I don't think it's in your writing. It would be very easy to misinterpret you that way, because you did go off by yourself, but you were certainly interested in the past and in the future. I think you saw the way things were going. You saw the importance of ethical principles, which have a future. Your attitude on slavery, for example, your attitude of the individual respect to his government. These were issues which are far-reaching, and they are, the words you wrote are still ringing down the...
So let me start with a story. There was once a man who loved summer. Each June, he made the same promise. This is the summer that I'll finally relax. He made plans for walks, lakeside evenings, books in a hammock, berries, birds, rest. But summer started to fill up. June became July, July became August, and the list remained unfulfilled. He spent the beautiful summer mornings planning for future weekends. He spent the sunny afternoons catching up on work. He spent the warm evenings watching videos on his phone and sharing news stories on Facebook. When he passed a park on his way to somewhere else, he thought, I should spend some time there. Whenever friends invited him somewhere, he replied, maybe after things settle down. But of course, things never settled down. In late August, he met an old friend sitting beside a strawberry patch, eating fruit straight from the earth. And she asked him, how's your summer been? Busy, he replied. And she replied to him, I didn't ask how much you've been doing. I asked how your summer has been. Paused. Looked around. The golden light of early evening covered the fields. Glowing but fireflies weaved in between the tall weeds. Crickets sang from every direction. The smell of wildflowers, warm earth, and sweet chlorophyll from freshly mown grass hung on the gentle breeze. And then he remembered that summer was almost over. All at once, he realized he had spent 3 months preparing to enjoy life later. The season was nearly gone, and he had spent it preparing for life instead of living it. The friend smiled and said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. They both laughed, and he finally sat down, and they watched the sunset. He discovered that the thing he'd been scheduling all season was already happening. He could finally relax. William Morris expressed this spirit in his summer verse, O June, that we desired so. Wilt thou not make us happy on this day? Across the river thy soft breezes blow, sweet with the scent of bean fields far away. Morris imagines laying aside our hopes and fears and simply giving our hearts to the season. He asks what better place could be found than beside a quiet stream, listening to the murmur of the stream, the rustling boughs, the twitter of the birds, and all thy thousand peaceful, happy words. This is the lesson that our hurried friend had to learn. As Thoreau once said, it's remarkable how little we attend to what is passing before us. So summer's gift is the invitation to set aside, if only for a moment, our endless anxieties about tomorrow and awaken to the abundance already surrounding us. As Thoreau once said, there is just as much beauty visible to us in the landscape as we are prepared to appreciate, not a grain more. Thoreau saw living in season as a metaphysical practice, and summer represents awakening, fullness, and expression. It calls us into participation. As Thoreau said, a healthy person indeed is the complement of the seasons, and in winter, summer is in their heart. So summer is not just outside of us, but it can live within us as vitality, gratitude, openness, expansiveness. So drink in the summer's healing elixir. Thoreau's friend Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, I have no hostility to nature, but a child's love to it. I expand and live in the warm day like corn and melons. And I love that. Imagine the image that conjures as I read that one more time. I expand and live in the warm day like corn and melons. It's a powerful affirmation. Let's say it together. I expand and live in the warm day like corn and melons. You see, the same divine intelligence that unfolds the seasons, that ripens the fruit, that causes the flowers to bloom, is seeking expression through you. Summer's a visible reminder of the abundance and creativity of spirit being made manifest in the world. Early New Thought pioneer Ralph Waldo Trine, no relation to Emerson, interestingly, although it has to be more than a coincidence because he was openly influenced by Emerson. But Trine similarly uses the language of June and summer to describe spiritual awakening. This divine breath is as exquisitely adapted to the requirements of the soul's nature as a June morning to the planet. This divine breath is as exquisitely adapted to the requirements of the soul's nature as a June morning to the planet. So June here represents alignment. As June opens the natural world to warmth, light, and to growth, the divine breath, the inflow of spiritual substance, opens the soul to expansion and expression. Like morning air moving through trees, this presence allows each form to unfold according to its own genius. The divine breath kindles new springtime in the soul and leads in heaven's summer. Spring awakens what is dormant. Summer brings it into fullness. The soul follows the same pattern. Spiritual life, then, is the seasonal life of consciousness, warming, expanding, and bringing hidden capacities into bloom. So how do we embody this consciousness of summer? Thoreau offers a beautiful answer. Drink of each season's influence as a vial, a true panacea of all remedies mixed for your special use. The vials of summer never made a man sick, but those which he stored in his cellar. Let nature do your bottling and your pickling and preserving. For all nature is doing her best each moment to make us well. She exists for no other end. Do not resist her. We often live on stored experience instead of present life. We store up dusty old bottles. We replay old thoughts, old worries, old expectations. But summer calls us back into immediacy. It reminds us to let go and let God, to have faith that these cycles renew our souls. So how do we fully live in season this summer and drink in its healing elixir? Here are a few things you can try. First, practice holy attention. Step outside, notice light, sound, air, and life, free of distraction. Let the present season reach you, reach your soul. Second, receive life as it comes. Don't postpone presence. Let life be lived now in the current moment and not later. Third, you can cultivate an inner summer land. Summer is at the heart of the healthy person, even in winter, as Thoreau says. Let gratitude, joy, and openness remain steady in your soul, regardless of circumstance or appearance. And finally, become a channel of summer consciousness. Calm the wintry storms of the world by bringing summer consciousness into the world. As Andrew Jackson Davis once said, the difference between this world and the adjoining sphere is as wide and as marked as between the seasons of winter and summer. But the time is coming on earth when the will of the great good will be done, as it is in the summer world. The realities of the upper life will at last shine into this life, and the kingdom of heaven will have come with its everlasting verdure, blending the two worlds so perfectly that every part of earth will be supremely blessed and beautiful. The summer of the soul is a lived expression of divine life. When you bring clarity where there's confusion, when you bring peace when there's tension, you bring generosity when there's lack, that's when you bring summer into the world. And don't just take my word for it. This is scientific religion, so that means you try it for yourself and see how it works. So let's live in season. breathe the air, drink the drink, fully delight in your relationship with water, swim in a lake, go sailing, get your hands in the earth, tend to a garden, go berry picking, taste the fruit, enjoy the season, ride some roller coasters, have a barbecue, play outdoor sports, go for a walk in the woods, climb a hill, lay in the grass, watch the fireflies, do whatever you do to live in season. Drink in the summer's healing elixir and resign yourself to its influences. Don't postpone the season. Let summer be lived both outwardly in time and inwardly in consciousness. Amen.
I think that we are not commonly aware that man is our contemporary. That in this strange, outlandish world, so barren, so prosaic, fit not to live in but merely to pass through, that even here, so divine a creature as man does actually live. Man, the crowning fact, the God we know. While the earth supports so rare an inhabitant, there is somewhat to cheer us. Who shall say that there is no God if there is a just man? It is only within a year that it has occurred to me that there is such a being actually existing on the globe. Now that I perceive that it is so, many questions assume a new aspect. We have not only the idea and vision of the divine ourselves, but we have brothers, it seems, who have this idea also. Methinks my neighbor is better than I, and his thought is better than mine. There is a representative of the divinity on earth of whom all things fair and noble are to be expected. We have the material of heaven here. I think that the standing miracle to man is man. Behind the paling yonder, come rain or shine, hope or doubt, there dwells a man, an actual being who can sympathize with our sublimest thoughts. The revelations of nature are infinitely glorious and cheering, hinting to us of a remote future of possibilities untold, but startlingly near to us, someday, we find a fellow man. The frog had eyed the heavens from his marsh until his mind was filled with visions, and he saw more than belongs to this fenny earth. He mistrusted that he was become a dreamer and visionary. Leaping across the swamp to his fellow, what was his joy and consolation to find that he too had seen the same sights in the heavens. He too had dreamed the same dream. From nature, we turn astonished to this near but supernatural fact. I think that the existence of man in nature is the divinest and most startling of all facts. It is a fact which few have realized. I can go to my neighbors and meet on ground as elevated as we could expect to meet upon if we were now in heaven. I do not think that man can understand the importance of man's existence, its bearing on the other phenomena of life, until it shall become a remembrance to him, the survivor, that such a being or such a race once existed on the earth. Imagine yourself alone in the world, a musing, wondering, reflecting spirit, lost in thought, and imagine thereafter the creation of man. Man made in the image of God.
Orders of time.
Do we call this the land of the free? When a sixth of the population of a nation which is undertaken to be the refuge of liberty are slaves, I think it is not too soon to rebel and revolutionize.
I'm Rosa Parks. I've been called the mother of the modern civil rights revolution or movement. And Mr. Thoreau, I'm sure that you may be called the father because of your ideas that were projected through Dr. Martin Luther King that helped us to carry on our nonviolent protest. That is, not cooperating with an evil system, but protesting nonviolently and peacefully.
How did you become involved exactly in civil disobedience?
When I was arrested on December 1st, 1955, for refusing to give my seat to a white male passenger on a Montgomery City Lines bus, after I had spent the day working in a man's tailor shop in a department store, I was quite physically weary, and when I took a seat, not really in the white section, but just back of the white section, but the driver did not want to see this man standing, so he asked me to clear that section for this white man to take a seat. I refused to do so. I was not angry, but I was determined to let it be known in this way of protesting that I was not being treated with dignity as a human being, and my only way of doing so was to refuse to stand up. I felt that the time had come for to take action, because as long as we obeyed what we believed to be wrong, we were as guilty as those who were perpetuating the wrongdoing.
I was jailed because I refused to pay my taxes in protest against this country's war on Mexico. It's one of the things we have in common is that we're both jailbirds.
Yes, we are. And up until the time I was arrested, I never felt that going to jail was anything that you would consider an honorable thing, because jail was always something to avoid, that only criminals went to jail. And I did not feel that I was a criminal, even though I was arrested and taken to jail.
I felt the same way. I felt that in a society where there is injustice and where they put men in prison unjustly, the only place really for a just man is also in prison.
Yes, I agree with you there.
I remember the night that I was in prison. I just finished my dinner, and my friend Waldo Emerson came by. He was all dressed up, as he always was, and he was terribly scandalized that I was in prison. And he looked at me and he said, "Henry, what are you doing in there?" And I remember I looked back at him and I said, "But Waldo, what are you doing out there?" I was involved with abolition. I've sheltered fugitive slaves in this very cabin. Were you aware, Mrs. Parks, that by following your conscience, by following what you thought at that moment, by not standing up, that you were performing a revolutionary act? Were you aware of that?
No, I certainly was not aware of it. I can say that if Dr. King hadn't been the leader that he was, reading your writings, our movement would not have been the success that it was. So we owe you a great debt of gratitude. And by our protests, we hope to continue the work that you began in the early days of our country.
But what seems clear to me is that some strange shit is going on as Thoreau writes up his encounters on the embankment. As if on an LSD trip, very ordinary things, his nose, ivy, some clay and sand in a ditch, detach from their usual context to reappear, to use Dieterichson's description of psychedelic experience, to reappear as sublime ridiculous. Each entity dilates and blurs at its edges to enter a dripping cosmic morphology, which seems more consistent with Branca's depiction of Thoreau's use of rolling analogies. What happens to the nose, ivy, clay, sand, and water also happens to the letters of the alphabet that Thoreau is using to write it up. Conscious of what he says is a, quote, slight insanity in his mood, Thoreau now sees the letters of the word lobe as themselves iterations of that globe drop shape. He writes, the radicals of lobe are LB, the soft mass of the B, single lobed, or B, or capital B, double lobed, with the liquid L pressing behind it. The liquid L behind it pressing forward. It's such a weird idea, I have a hard time reading it. Okay, So he's conscious of a slight insanity of his mood. He's been seeing the prototypes of the drops all over the place. And now he sees the letters of the word lobe as themselves iterations of the glob drop shape. Quote, the radicals of the lobe are LB, the soft mass of the lowercase b, single-lobed, or uppercase b, double-lobed, with the liquid L behind it, pressing it forward. Okay, the last section, and then I'll stop, is called Winged Thoughts. At the embankment, Thoreau's thoughts, affected by natural influences in that subtle, ethereal, under-the-radar way, his thoughts take flight. He writes, you find in the very sands an anticipation of the vegetable leaf. The leaf sees its prototype in the shape of a moist, thick lobe. The ball of the human finger is but a drop congealed. The chin is a still larger drop, the confluent dripping of the face. What is man but a mass of thawing clay? End quote. So natural influences emanating from the sandy slope alongside the railroad, as well as from the shape of his nose and the letters of the alphabet, start to loosen the grip of ordinary perception. New perceptions arise, and so do winged thoughts, which, quote, like birds, do not tolerate too much handling. Okay, so Thoreau's thoughts, in the presence of natural influences, they leap and overshoot, and his account of the thawing bank is both overdone and also elusive. But he takes these to be virtues, to overdo things, and to exaggerate, and also to be somewhat elusive. He takes those to be virtues. In a journal entry on Christmas Day in 1851, he contrasts explanations that are governed by the understanding with the truer discipline of a writer who takes, quote, the faintest intimations and the least film of thought that floats in the twilight sky of his mind for his theme. I'm teaching a seminar this semester on Lucretius, who had this idea of simulacra, which are the sort of outer layer of the atoms of any formed thing that float around in the world and impact. They're taken in by the very fine pores of your body, and they impact your thinking. And it's interesting to me now here that Thoreau wrote in 1851 of the discipline of a writer who takes the faintest intimations and the least film of thought that floats in the twilight sky of his mind for his theme. End quote. The poet who allows his words to shoot beyond their mark drifts closer to the truth of things. He's better able to translate a natural influence whose efficacy is not linguistic into words.
Little children, please listen. Your Savior's calling you, and His hand will keep you safe. When this life of yours is through, then your wounds will all be healed, and your tears wiped away by love that is soothing, like the warm summer day. He knows your hearts are heavy, and He knows your feet are sore. So put your weary head in His, and you'll reach the other shore, and your wounds will all be healed, and your tears wiped away, by a love that is soothing, like a warm summer day.
a vital form of literature that can enrich our own lives.